What's up everyone, Max Armand here, your source for all things real estate here in Los Angeles. And in today's video, we're going over the residential purchase agreement. The RPA is the most important document when you're buying or selling a home in California. Let's get started. Welcome back to another video, and today we're going over the residential purchase agreement, or the RPA. Now, this is the purchase agreement, this is the offer, and when you're buying or selling a home, this is the document that's going to contain all of the major terms and conditions of the transaction moving forward. Now, this document is 10 pages long, so we're going to go along one by one, page by page, showing you all of the top terms and conditions that you're going to need to watch out for when either writing or reviewing an offer. Now, page 1 of the 10-page agreement contains all of the financial information for the transaction. It has the property address, the buyer and seller names, the close of escrow date, how much the earnest money deposit is, and also contains the purchase price, probably the most important thing, along with what your down payment amount is. This page also defines what loan type the buyer is using, whether that's FHA, conventional, VA, or cash. There's also an additional space at the bottom for financing terms. And this is where you'd find a seller credit to the buyer for their closing costs if that's involved in the transaction. Now, as we go through this video, you're going to see that there's a lot of boilerplate information and legal verbiage on the contract that I may not address specifically. But I'm going to point out the most important parts of each page. And on page 2, that's going to be the loan and appraisal contingency periods. The standard appraisal contingency is 17 days, and we usually don't change that from what's written down on the contract. The loan contingency is set at 21 days on the contract, but usually I reduce this to 14 or 17 days if you have a strong buyer who's going to get that loan approval much sooner. This is going to show the seller that you're strong, can close fast, and that your loan is on track to being approved right from the start of the transaction. Section 7 at the bottom of page 2 is where we start the section that is allocation of costs. And this is where you determine who pays for the natural hazard disclosure, certain reports like the termite report, inspection report, HOA docs, and things of that nature. And that section continues on to page 3. Page 3, section C, is an important part of the transaction, and that decides who pays for escrow and title costs. The most common agreement in purchase agreements in California is for the buyer and seller to split the closing costs, and for the seller to pay for the owner's title insurance. In section D, we get to a long list of other costs and who is going to pay for them. The city and county transfer taxes are covered by the seller. This is where you determine who pays for the termite inspection report. And if you're buying or selling in a place like Inglewood, this is where we would mark down who pays for the Inglewood pre-sale report. Section D, item 10, is who pays for the home warranty plan. Now, the standard dollar figure for that is $450, but the buyer may choose to upgrade that coverage to cover things like AC or a pool, and usually those upgrades would come at the buyer's expense. The last section we're going over on page 3 is section 8, which determines which fixtures and appliances stay with the home at the close of escrow. And this is a negotiation between buyer and seller, which washer dryers, fridges, and stoves may stay or leave with the current seller. Pages 4 and 5 have a lot of boilerplate information and legal verbiage regarding taxes, disclosures, title investing, and so you don't make changes to these terms. If you'd like a copy of the agreement, reach out to me and you can absolutely review these terms, but now we're going to move on to page 6. Page 6, section 14, has one of the most important parts of the agreement, and this is your time frame for your inspection contingencies. The standard on the page is 17 days, but we usually reduce this time to 10 to 14 days. This is the time where you hire your home inspector, review the seller disclosures, review title to the property, and satisfy yourself as to the condition of the property before removing your inspection contingency. And speaking of contingency periods, that brings us to notice to performs. And in section 14, item E, you have your notice to buyer to perform set at 2 days. So if your inspection, loan, or appraisal contingencies have come due, and you are not releasing those contingencies upon your legally contractual time frame, the seller can send you a notice to perform. And that gives you 48 hours to act upon that contingency and satisfy it before they are legally allowed to cancel the deal. So that's why it's very important to be staying on top of your time frames, completing your inspections in a timely manner, always following up with your lender to make sure that loan is getting approved on time so that you don't back yourself into a corner and face a notice to perform situation. So page 7 has a lot of that legal verbiage and no sections that we actually change to alter the contract. It has terms regarding verification of property condition, joint escrow instructions, broker compensation, so we're not going to go over this stuff in detail. Let's move on to page 8. Page 8 has very important terms regarding breach of contract. If the deal goes south and there's a significant conflict between the buyer, the seller, or the agents, then the initials that you put down on page 8 say that you're going to go to mediation or arbitration that's sanctioned by the California Association of Realtors as opposed to going to court. These signatures are actually optional, but I advise all my clients, and on 99.9% of transactions, both parties opt into this clause. It's a way to resolve any conflicts without bogging you down in legal fees and court dates and coming to a mutual agreement through a mediator. Page 9 is another one of those pages that has a lot of that boilerplate information that we're not going to go over in detail during this video. There is a signature at the bottom for the buyer which executes the contract in full, and the rest of the signatures for sellers and agents are on the following page, the last page of the contract, page 10. Page 10 is the final page of the residential purchase agreement, and the most important section is right there at the top, and that's where a seller would sign acceptance. Now, when a seller receives an offer, they're going to be able to do one of 3 things. They can accept the offer outright, counter the offer, or reject the offer. Page 10 is also where the agents on both sides of the transaction would endorse this offer, and where the escrow holder would eventually endorse when they are ready to open escrow. So that was your crash course on the residential purchase agreement. It's the cornerstone of every real estate transaction in California, whether you're a buyer or a seller, and I hope that today's video went over the top terms for you so next time you see this document, you know what you're looking at. So if you have any questions, feel free to contact me on the email below. I'm here to answer any questions that you may have about real estate here in Los Angeles, but until then, I'll see you on the next video.